Now Bush is being criticized by many for having spoken to a Wounded Warriors veterans group. Just consider the irony here. These are wounded veterans. The vast majority of them, I would be willing to bet, are veterans of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq that George W. Bush lied us into. And he charged that this Wounded Warrior Veterans Group, he charged them $100,000 for him to give a speech to them. Which brings me to an interesting colloquy, shall we say, between Facebook and one of the posters over at Democratic Underground. A fellow by the name of Jim Adams posted on Facebook day before yesterday at 10 o'clock. He said, "If you're a Republican, don't you dare thank me for my military service. You no longer have that right. You sent us to war on a lie. You cut our health benefits, and now you're cutting our food." He's talking about the Republican sequester and the Republican budget that cuts food stamps. He says, "You have voted against every veterans bill that has hit the floor. You don't give a F about us, so don't effing pretend to. We are the 47% you like to refer to as the takers. So from all of us veterans out here, screw you." His language is just a little bit more colorful. In response to that, a fellow by the name of, whose screen name over at DU, Democratic Underground, is Shadow Mayor, posted a response. This was yesterday, titled "WMD's My Ass." He says, "Thanks for posting this. I spent 2005 or OIF 3 or 2 Thomas Friedman, suck on this unit's worth of time, in Abu Ghraib prison, where we brought liberty and freedom to thousands of Iraqis detained and trapped inside of fences within high walls. Didn't believe in the war before I went, while I was there, and certainly not after I returned. But I was a soldier, and I couldn't live with the thought of another going in my place. It's complicated. I was a stop-lost, cross-leveled engineer sent in with the MP reserves out of New York. We had more lead, RPGs, and mortars and rockets rained on Abu Ghraib than any spot in Iraq. It was truly a hellhole beyond description. Did the soldiers torture and humiliate prisoners before we arrived? You betcha, as Palin might say. But those who ran the show, the contract employees and the officers, they didn't get blamed, naturally. The deaths and rapes and more were never released to the public. Wonder why? We were told we were a liberating force, not an occupying force. Camp Remembrance, where most of the Iraqis were detained, was to remind us all of those brave firemen and police officers who died on 9/11. Yet while we were there, the boy president let it slip that Iraq had nothing to do with the attacks in New York. Not to be deterred, we Charlie Miked for the rest of the year. Had a front row view of the phony elections, drove down the roads, saw the murderous carnage unleashed by our war machine, and listened intently to groups of Sunni prisoners tell me around May of 2005 that the U.S. should leave as we were killing too many people and the Shiites were taking over. That was the point where the Civil War was a done deal, thanks to our war pigs in charge. I spoke out openly against the invasion, to the chagrin of many in our unit at first, but by the end of my tour, a great many had changed their minds. Senators Schumer and Clinton were sent several letters begging them to help remove the Iraqis from Abu Ghraib, as it was in violation of the Geneva Conventions regarding protecting those under an army's charge and keeping them from harm and away from the battlefield. Crickets on that big one, folks, big crickets. ISIS was formed in our prisons, detention centers like Abu Ghraib and Bucca, B-U-C-C-A. I refuse to refer to them as ISIS, as they're really Al-Qaeda 3.0. Why aren't any of our generals fired? Why are our politicians and media so easily fooled by the BS surge? I came back to a brain-dead country that had no idea what was going on, much of it in our name. Apparently, Abu Ghraib was selected by that well-known incarceration and war expert Paul Wolfowitz, as he found it to be centrally located. The list of screw-ups, disasters, and wanton disregard for the Iraqi people is endless. It really is a case of join the army, see the world, meet interesting people, and kill them. Hardy effing har har. So when a dip repuke tries to thank me, I am no longer polite. In other words, a Republican. I tell him, No, let me thank you for voting for the bastards who led us into this terrible war, where millions of Iraqis lie dead and homeless and suffering, where our treasure was hemorrhaged to feed KBR and other private war profiteers, and where my buddies and I came back broken, both physically and psychically. And now we're expected to man up and be quiet about all that crap? And if a Democrat dares to thank me, I simply say, you have got to be effing kidding me, right? Because if you don't know what a terrible insult that is, well, lend your ear, and I'll tell you a little bit about what war is really like, and I am positive you won't enjoy it one damn bit. And I always ask, where the hell did the people of Iraq, what the hell did the people of Iraq ever do to the people of the USA? Time to exhale the shadow mirror. George W. Bush charging $100,000 to a group of, over 6,000 American soldiers died in Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting absolutely unnecessary wars. Keep in mind, the Taliban offered, right after 9/11, the Taliban offered to arrest Osama bin Laden and present him to a third country for trial. And George Bush said, nope, we want to have a war. Because back in 1999, he had told Mickey Herskowitz, who was ghostwriting his autobiography, A Charge to Keep, in anticipation of his run for the presidency, he had told Mickey Herskowitz that, my daddy had all his capital built up when he invaded Iraq, and he blew it. I mean, George Herbert Walker Bush's war was only 100 hours long, remember? He says, if I get elected president, if I have an opportunity, I'm going to invade Iraq, and I'm not going to blow that. I'm going to use all that political capital you get from being a war president and have a successful presidency, which meant, in his mind, privatizing Social Security. You'll recall, after the 2004 elections, in 2005, the first thing he said was, I've got all this political capital from the election. I'm going to spend it right now. We're going to privatize Social Security. And he tried. Unsuccessfully, but he tried. It's really quite mind-boggling when you think about it.